They say people don't really hear you until you're quiet. They don't see you until you're gone. Think about it. Every day you show up, you give your time, your love, your energy, and it starts to feel normal to them. Like, it's guaranteed, like you'll always be there. But the truth is, nothing in this life is promised, not even your presence. And that's why your absence will teach them more than your presence ever could. People forget because when you're there, they take it for granted. They assume they can call you tomorrow, lean on you next week, drain your energy next month. But when you step back, when the calls stop ringing, when the chair you always filled is suddenly empty, that's when they start to realize the weight you carried. That's when the little things become big things. You know, that's when silence starts speaking louder than words. Your absence isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's protection. It's a reminder that you are not infinite energy to be used until you're empty. You are a force, and a force becomes most powerful when people realize what it feels like to live without it. When we talk about value through scarcity, we're really diving into the human tendency to overlook what's constant and close and to suddenly elevate what slips out of reach. The truth is, people rarely recognize the full weight of someone's presence while it's steady and available. They adjust to it like background noise, something they assume will always be there. That's why your presence, no matter how strong, how consistent, or how valuable, can fade into the rhythm of familiarity. People get used to your calls, your advice, your help, your love, your loyalty. And in that routine, they sometimes lose sight of just how much those things are worth. Is when that presence is withdrawn, when the routine breaks, when silence replaces sound, that the absence reshapes their perspective. They start replaying moments, reconsidering words, and feeling an emptiness where your energy once stood. That gap, that space you leave behind suddenly teaches them something your presence couldn't. Scarcity has always been tied to value. Think about rare stones, limited edition sneakers, or even moments of peace in a busy world. The less available something is, the more people want it, protect it, and assign importance to it. The same psychology applies to human beings. When you're too present, too accessible, too available, the mind starts to treat your energy as common. It doesn't mean people are malicious. It's just human nature to downplay what feels guaranteed. But when you pull back, when you stop being the first to reach out, when you no longer provide that easy access, that's when they start measuring what you really brought to their lives. Your absence forces them to compare life with you versus life without you. And that comparison hits harder than any speech, warning, or complaint you could ever deliver while you were still around. The scarcity effect doesn't just teach others, it teaches you too. Being present all the time makes you believe your value has to be proven through constant doing, constant giving, constant showing up. But when you allow yourself to step back, you see how your silence still speaks, how your absence still influences, how your energy is missed even when you're not actively pouring it out. That shift shows you that your worth is not tied to overextension. The energy misplaces on you ahead of time to make a calamity. It proves that just existing in someone's life, in memory and impact, carries weight even when you're not physically or emotionally available in that moment. And that realization changes how you carry yourself because you learn to set boundaries, to protect your time, and to understand that you don't have to burn yourself out to stay valuable. There's also a deeper layer to scarcity. It reveals who really values you and who only values what you provide. When you're always there, people might confuse appreciation with convenience. They appreciate that you're easy to reach, that you solve problems, that you show up. But that appreciation is often shallow because it's attached to what you do, not who you are. The moment you pull back, the moment you're not as accessible, their reaction shows you the truth. Some people will grow resentful because they never valued you. They valued the access. Others will grow reflective because they realize they've been taking you for granted and want to rebuild the connection with a deeper sense of respect. Absence becomes a filter, separating genuine love from dependency and teaching lessons that words alone could never teach. There's a reason why people often glorify the dead more than the living. It's absence on the highest scale. When someone passes, their presence is permanently gone, and suddenly the weight of what they meant rushes in like a flood. People post tributes, share stories, and hold on to memories because the scarcity of that presence makes it priceless. But you don't have to wait for that kind of permanent absence to see the same principle in action. And even small withdrawals, choosing not to show up at every event, not responding immediately, not overextending yourself, these create pockets of scarcity that raise awareness of your value. People start to see you differently because they now understand that having you around is not automatic, not guaranteed, not endless. This dynamic plays out in relationships, friendships, business, and community. In relationships, constant availability often leads to complacency. A partner might stop appreciating the love, the patience, the support because it's always there. But when space enters, when silence replaces constant communication, suddenly the small things stand out. They remember the way you laughed, the way you showed love, the way you held them down. Scarcity sharpens memory, and memory creates appreciation. In friendships, the same rule applies. A friend who always lends money, always listens, always pulls up, starts to feel invisible in their generosity. But when that friend stops being the safety net, the circle fills the hole, and they start to recognize how much balance that person actually brought. In business, a product or service that's always in stock might not excite the market, but the moment it sells out, demand spikes. Likewise, when your skills or presence are not endlessly available, people start to pay attention to the uniqueness of what you offer. Value through scarcity also builds respect. Respect isn't just about admiration, it's about recognition of limits. If people feel they can call on you anytime, drain your energy, take your effort without consequence, respect slowly erodes because they confuse access with ownership. But once you introduce scarcity, once you show that your time is selective, your energy is sacred, and your presence is not a guarantee, respect begins to take root. People may not like the shift at first, but in the long run, they'll treat your presence with more care. It's the same way someone treats a luxury item. Gentle, careful, appreciative, because they know it's rare and not easily replaced. Another layer of scarcity is how it creates legacy. Presence is powerful, but is often tied to the moment. Absence, on the other hand, forces people to live with memory. They replay your lessons. They recall your influence. They sit with their words in silence, and that memory often becomes more powerful than the real-time interaction ever was. Teachers, leaders, mentors, and even friends who step back often find that their absence makes their impact echo longer. While you're around, people hear you. When you're gone, people feel you. That shift from hearing to feeling is the essence of value through scarcity. Absence also disrupts patterns. People build habits around your availability, and when you withdraw, those habits break. That break forces them to either step up, adapt, or reevaluate. A child who always leans on a parent learns independence when that parent is no longer present for every need. A team that always relies on one leader learns accountability when that leader steps back. A community that expects constant giving begins to create self-sufficiency when the giver stops supplying endlessly. Scarcity transforms dynamics by forcing growth, and that growth often leaves a stronger impact than presence ever could. Energy is one of the most expensive currencies we hold, but is often the one people protect the least. Money can be regained, time can sometimes be adjusted, but the energy you give out, once it leaves you, doesn't return in the same form. It takes rest, healing, and intentional work to rebuild it. When you're constantly present, always pouring into others, always answering, always showing up, you spread that energy wide and thin, and people begin to assume that your supply is endless. They start to expect it without considering the costs. Energy withdrawal is the act of reclaiming your power, pulling your vibration back into yourself, not as punishment, but as preservation. It's not about spite, it's about balance. When people misuse, drain, or overlook your energy, stepping back is the only way they'll learn what that force truly meant. Your withdrawal doesn't just teach them, it heals you. The thing about energy is that it's invisible, yet undeniable. You can't hold it in your hands, but you feel it in every interaction. When you walk into a room, people either feel uplifted or dragged down. When you give advice, it either inspires or gets dismissed. When you love, it either gets reciprocated or drained. But because it's not a material thing, people don't always respect it. They lean on you too heavy, call you too often, depend on you too much because they see your presence as permanent and your energy is limitless. Over time, this creates an imbalance, one where you're emptying yourself for others but rarely getting filled in return. Energy withdrawal is the act of closing that leak. It's the moment you decide you're no longer giving your force away freely to those who mishandle it. Withdrawal is powerful because it shifts the dynamic. When you're always available, people stop listening carefully. They assume they can come back tomorrow, that you'll repeat yourself, that your attention is an endless well. But when you stop answering the phone, when you stop offering your perspective, when you stop rescuing people from their own mistakes, that silence speaks volumes. It forces others to reflect on how much of your energy they've leaned on, They remember how quick you were to show up, how often you solved problems, how much lighter things felt with you around, and suddenly the gap becomes undeniable. People don't learn the value of energy while it's being given. They learn it in the void it leaves behind. There's another side to withdrawal that many people don't realize. It reveals intention. Some people are drawn to your light only because it benefits them. They like the way your energy makes them feel, but they don't consider the toll it takes on you. When you withdraw, those people show their true colors. If they disappear when you stop giving, it means they were never connected to you, only to the energy you provided. But the ones who respect you will adapt. They'll try to pour back into you. They'll ask how you're doing instead of what you can do for them. And they'll value the moments you choose to give rather than expecting it on demand. Withdrawal draws a clear line between the people who are with you and the people who are only with your energy. Energy withdrawal also teaches discipline. It's not easy to pull back, especially when you're used to being the one others depend on. There's a certain pride in being the strong one, the reliable one, the one who always knows what to say or do. But that pride comes with a cost because it conditions you to overextend. Withdrawal forces you to reprogram that habit. It requires saying no when you've been conditioned to say yes. It requires silence when you're tempted to step in. It requires trust that people will figure things out on their own, even if they stumble. This discipline doesn't just protect your energy, it strengthens your boundaries, and boundaries are what keep your spirit from being drained dry. When you withdraw, you also give others the chance to grow. Sometimes your energy becomes a crutch. People lean on it so heavily that they stop developing their own strength. They call you for advice instead of learning to trust themselves. They rely on your presence instead of building their own resilience. Withdrawal removes the safety net and forces them to walk their own path. At first, they might resent it. They might see your absence as abandonment or selfishness. But in time, if they're honest, they'll realize that your withdrawal wasn't about neglect. It was about teaching them to stand without leaning on your constant support. In that way, your absence becomes a gift because it creates independence, reflection, and responsibility in the people who once drained you without thought. Energy withdrawal also changes your perspective on yourself. When you stop giving to everyone, you notice how much you were sacrificing. You notice the fatigue that had become normal. You notice the creativity that was being smothered. You notice the peace that returns when you're not constantly tied to other people's needs. Withdrawal helps you redirect that same energy inward into your goals, your healing, your vision. It reminds you that the same force you gave to others can build your own empire, your own happiness, your own balance. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop bleeding for people who don't know how to stop cutting. There's also a spiritual dimension to energy withdrawal. Energy is sacred. It's the essence of your soul, the vibration you carry, the unseen current that moves through you. When you constantly let others drain it, you dim your own light. And a dim light not only hurts you, it robs the world of your true potential. Withdrawal, then, is not just about protecting yourself, it's about protecting the purpose you were given. By stepping back from those who misuse your force, you keep your flame burning strong for the things and people that deserve it. That flame, when preserved, becomes a beacon, something much larger than what it could ever be if it were constantly drained. Another part of withdrawal is the silence it creates, because silence itself has energy. When you stop giving words, people start remembering what you said in the past. When you stop showing up, people remember the times you did. Silence creates echoes, and those echoes often carry more weight than sound. Your absence then becomes its own language. It speaks of boundaries, of self-respect, of lessons unspoken, and the ones who are truly paying attention will hear it louder than they ever heard your words. The world teaches us to constantly pour out, to always be emotional, always give, but there's wisdom in stillness and restraint in pulling back. Energy withdrawal isn't about turning your back on people. It's about facing yourself. It's about recognizing that your force is too powerful to be scattered carelessly. It's about understanding that you can't save everyone, and you're not meant to. Sometimes the most powerful teaching you can give is not your presence, but your absence, not your voice, but your silence, not your energy, but the withdrawal of it. Distance has a way of reshaping the way people see things, the way they feel, and the way they grow. When you are always near, always accessible, always part of someone's daily life, they don't have much room to reflect. Your presence fills the space so completely that there's no silence left for perspective. But when you step back, when you create distance, it's in that emptiness that growth begins. Distance forces people to look at themselves, to re-examine what you meant, and to measure the gaps you used to fill. It's not the closeness that often teaches the deepest lessons. It's the space in between. Growth and distance begins with awareness. When someone is close to you, they often focus on the surface of your interactions. They get used to your tone, your patterns, your routines. They don't always pause to recognize the deeper influence you bring because it feels automatic, like background rhythm. But when you create distance, those everyday details stop. The calls aren't there, the laughs aren't there, the check-ins aren't there, and suddenly those small details become magnified in memory. People realize how much they were relying on your presence, how much those moments shaped them, and how different life feels without that constant connection. That awareness is the seed of growth because it forces them to ask questions they never asked before. Did I value them enough? Did I give back what they gave me? What part of myself did I neglect because I leaned on them too much? Those questions lead to self-reflection, and self-reflection is the beginning of change. There's also growth in how distance creates space for responsibility. When someone has you close, it's easy for them to hand over their burdens, to expect your support, to let you carry the weight with them. But when you step back, they no longer have that same safety net. They have to carry more of their own load. At first, it might feel heavy, even unfair, but in time, it strengthens them. Just like lifting weights tears the muscle before it rebuilds stronger, carrying responsibility without your constant help forces people to develop resilience they didn't know they had. Growth happens in the struggle, and distance provides the environment where that struggle becomes unavoidable. Without you stepping in at every moment, they discover capacities within themselves that your closeness, ironically, may have kept hidden. Distance also reshapes respect. Closeness, while comforting, can sometimes breed complacency. When someone knows they can reach you at any time, they may not respect your presence in the way they should. They start to see you as permanent, as always there, as part of the furniture in their life. Distance breaks that illusion. When you step away, people realize that your time, your energy, your love, your wisdom are not guarantees. They're privileged. They begin to value your presence more deeply because it's no longer constant. They learn that having access to you is not a right, but something to be treated with care. That respect born in distance is often stronger and more genuine than the shallow appreciation they gave when you were always near. Growth and distance is not just for others, it's for you too. When you step back from constant closeness, you get the chance to see people more clearly. You notice who checks in when you're not around, who respects the space, who tries to bridge the gap with effort rather than resentment. Distance filters out those who were attached only to what you gave them, not to who you are. It sharpens your vision, showing you the true nature of your connections, something you might miss when you're always in the middle of it. That clarity helps you grow too because it teaches you how to move with more wisdom, how to balance giving with protecting, how to invest your presence where it's truly valued. Distance also gives both sides room to evolve individually. When two people are constantly close, they can sometimes stunt each other's growth without realizing it. They lean on each other's strengths instead of developing their own. They settle into routines that keep them comfortable but not expanding. They avoid challenges because the closeness shields them. When distance enters, that shield is removed. Each person is forced to step into their own path, to face things alone, to learn independently. That individual growth makes any future reconnection stronger because now it's not just one side carrying the weight. Both have grown. Both have learned. Both have gained new depth. Distance in this way is not an ending, but a preparation for a more balanced connection. There's also a psychological truth about absence. It heightens memory. When you're around, people often focus on the moment-to-moment details. They hear your words, but they don't always let them sink in. They experience your presence, but they don't always measure it. When you're gone, the mind replays those moments with a different lens. What you said lingers longer. What you did feels heavier. The energy you gave feels rarer. That memory plants seeds of growth because it shifts from passive experience to active reflection. In your absence, people don't just consume your energy, they